up, everybody? Welcome back to SGU Uncut. We are in week 2 of our series, God, G.O.D. We'll remind you what that is in just a second. So before we get to that, Daniel, welcome back to the show.
Hey, it is good to be back with SGU.
So you've been on here before, but do you want to reintroduce yourself real quick to all of our new guests?
Sure. Yeah, it's great to be back. I am on staff here at Nativity. I'm the Next Gen Director, so I get to work with all of our kids and students. That's where Emily got her start.
Yes, the good old days.
Yeah, she was a student back in the day when I started here.
Yep.
And now you've graduated up. Look at you blossoming with SGU.
It's like, what's that word? Nostalgic to have you back on here.
Oh.
You know? I love it.
Well,
it's fun.
thanks.
Well, Dana, start us off on something good. What's been the highlight of your week?
Well, I had my birthday this week.
Everybody's saying happy birthday to Daniel.
No, I got lots of people singing happy birthday to me. That was good.
Yeah.
And I turned 25, which means
25.
I can still be
That's
part
the
of
best
SGU.
age. I love it. You just made the cut. Anyways, thank you for being here today. And we're going to dive into week 2 of our series. So last week, we talked about loving God. We have our mission that God gave us of love God, love others, and make disciples. So last week, we talked about love in general and what that looks like, especially loving God and how we can worship Him in thanksgiving and praise. And so today, we are going to talk about loving others. And Daniel, loving others comes easy when we talk about people we love, we get along with. What's been a fruitful relationship in your life?
Well, I think the easy answer for most people is to say a family member or parent. And those have been really fruitful relationships. But I was trying to think of somebody else. And I have a youth minister that I met when I was in middle school, and she has been a constant mentor for me for the last 20 or so years. So I'm older than 25.
You gave it
put
away.
that together. But she was a single person when I met her, and then over the course of our friendship, she got married when I was in high school, has 7 kids, has remained in ministry, and just continues to challenge me and my faith to grow, and has just been a great friend and mentor to me for a long time.
Yeah. How has it been easy to love her? How has it been fruitful for you?
Well, one of the ways I think is that she always showed me kind of the next step in my own faith journey, because I could see her living that out and going deeper and finding new ways to express her faith. And then I got into youth ministry because of her.
Yeah, was that kind of your inspiration to come
She
into
definitely
youth
was
ministry?
part of it, yeah. Growing up in a great church where youth were really emphasized, and she did such a good job of building a community and helping us to be confident in who we were and in our relationship with Jesus. So.
Yeah. That's a great story. I mean, I'm certainly glad she inspired you and led you in that direction. So
Yeah,
that's
me
great
too.
that you're here. But it's easy to love those people because we get along with them, we're inspired by them, we enjoy their company. But on the flip side of the spectrum, there's difficult people too. Has there been a specific difficult relationship in your life that's been less fruitful, not as easy?
Well, I like to think that I get along with everybody.
I can see
I think
that
we all
for you.
would like that for ourselves, you know. None of us want to be difficult people, but I had a neighbor one time who just seemed to have it out for me. Didn't matter what I did. This neighbor just didn't like me. There was nothing I could really do about it, and wanted me out. So just tried to make my life miserable, basically.
Yeah, it's hard to love those people, especially you have to see your neighbor pretty often.
Yeah, you don't get out of that
live next to them.
relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, and seeing people like that on a daily basis, or someone close to us, like a parent, a sibling, a friend, they can hurt our heart. They can impact our lives on a daily basis. So our actions can sometimes become affected by that. Do you find yourself acting differently towards them versus your youth minister or someone like that?
Well, yeah, like you said, it's easy to love someone who loves you back, but when it's somebody that doesn't love you back, then you don't give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't feel like when I had this neighbor that I was, basically I just tried to avoid after a while, because I didn't know of anything kind that I could say, and I just felt like it was always going to be a confrontation if we interacted. So
yeah, and stepping back isn't always a bad thing, but sometimes we can even purposely push them out of life. Sometimes we can go out of our way to intentionally act the same way that they're acting towards us and not showing that love. But Jesus tells us a different way of approaching those situations. He says, "My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. So that last line, to lay down one's life for one's friends, that's the bottom line. He's not actually asking us to sacrifice ourselves to our friends. I mean, that's not realistic, but he's asking us to put the other people first, to show that generosity and love. So how are you able to take that and implement it in your life? How do you show love to other people?
Well, it is a lot easier. I mean, he says friends here. He doesn't say lay down your life
That's
for your
a good
enemies,
note. Yeah.
even though he did it for all of us. But I do think there are just moments where you can do that. Like one of the ways that I really love to show others that I care about them is give them my undivided attention. There have been people in my life over the years that when you sit and talk with them, they make you feel like you're the most important person in the world. They have nothing that could be more important than sitting and talking to you at that moment. And whether it's the eye contact or how they listen, and I just have always wanted to emulate that with the relationships that I have. And I feel like for the most part, I can do that with people. I'm a good listener.
Yeah, I've experienced that with you too. That's a great way to show love to others. Have you seen any fruit come out of that generosity and love?
Yeah, I think when you show somebody that you're invested in them with your attention, they trust you. So in the places where I've worked, I feel like I can be a sounding board for people, that people generally trust me, and that creates a better working environment. I can see it with friendships and stuff too, but especially in workplaces, I think that's where you can really see the fruit tangibly make a difference.
Yeah. And speaking to that generosity, you and I went to this conference in Georgia back in May with Pastor Andy Stanley from North Point. And he spoke in one of his talks, live your life in such a way that when people see your good deeds, they ask themselves, who is that generous? And I think that's something that you just talked about in your relationships at work, giving people that undivided attention. How do you see, do you see other people changing in that way? Or when we cross difficult people, do they ever see that fruit come out in that relationship, like your difficult relationships? Do you see fruit?
Yeah, well, he has a series I actually listened to recently, and it's just 2 parts about mean people. And I listened to it thinking about the mean people that I have in my life. And there's not a lot, but everybody has somebody that you look at and you're like, that person's just mean.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes you don't necessarily see the fruit. Like he was talking about this person that he and his wife interacted with. They had to get them out of a house that they were trying to sell for like an elderly neighbor. And the person wouldn't leave. They just wouldn't leave. And eventually his wife went and baked bread and brought it to him. And he did leave. So finally the fruit was like he left. Yeah. But I was thinking, I could go do that for like a mean neighbor. I could bake him bread.
Well, you have your neighbor, so.
I did have that neighbor at one time, yeah. But then I think, I'm not sure that would make a difference. I don't think I would see fruit from that. There are relationships that are reconcilable, and there are some that where you just, the time doesn't allow you to do that. Maybe time will heal it. Yeah. And I think with that neighbor, when I was living next to them, I probably couldn't reconcile it during that time when we were neighbors. Yeah. So, but I think from what Andy says and from what we heard Jesus say, it doesn't make a difference. That person's reaction is not what makes us love them. We're required to love them because God created them. They reflect the image of God. And so that love may look differently, but doesn't change our mission.
Right. That's the mission, to love God, love others, and make disciples. So that loving others, we do our side of this, keep our side of the street clean, essentially, that we just keep pushing love out no matter what. We keep throwing that generosity out there, and that's how we can complete that mission of loving others.
It's not easy, though.
Yeah. Takes some work, but that's why we're here in small groups. So what can you do this week to love others, move that mission forward, and keep growing in your faith and community with everyone around you? So thank you, Daniel, for joining us today. It's been a blast as per usual.
Always.
And we'll see you all next week as we finish up our mission, love God, love others, and finally make disciples. We'll see you then.